Good evening, folks. I am not Nicholas Anthony Talker, and neither is the gentleman with me. I am Joe Bachman,
And I'm Rich Asplin.
and we are filling in for Nick tonight with the Historical Fencing Guild. Uh, as most of you know, we are both members of the guild, have been for quite a few years, and with the festival going on in Nick's town this weekend, his internet is probably going to be worse than a 33.6K dial-up. So I knew you'd at least get that reference, Rich. So Nick
At least
asked,
it's not worse than a 2400 baud.
it might get that bad. But we decided to. Well, I decided to step in for Nick, and then last night I conned Richie into helping out with this also. So tonight we're going to be talking longswords, as Rich is our resident longsword expert. And
I wouldn't say expert, but
we'll just throw that in there now.
Aficionado.
Aficionado. Okay. So, with that, Rich, you want to give a little bit of your background on longsword? I don't know enough about your background to just talk like Nick would.
All right. Well, I'm 50 years old. I've been attempting to fence since I was 3 years old, and saw my first representation of the Three Musketeers from the cartoon, from the old kids show, The Banana Splits. Yes, I'm that old. But my sisters and I used to, sit there and pretend the hot dog skewers were rapiers, and
those were rapiers.
Yeah. Just very, very dull ones. But I mean, they were the perfect length for a 3-year-old. Watched a lot of various medieval and Eastern sword fighting movies throughout my lifetime. One of my best friends from school is actually Nick's nephew, George. And then I ended up through George and Rachel coming into the guild and learning to fence more properly, which a lot of what I'd picked up on my own translated over. And then Nick's teaching style leads more towards rapier. I am not a finesse and speed kind of guy. 6'4", over 400 pounds. I'm built for power. So
you're the barbarian of the group. You're not the rogue. Yeah.
Yes. I should be wearing a bear shirt, and growing my beard out very long and braiding it and drinking mead. But when I ended up buying my fencing rig, my practice rig for the guild, instead of going for something that would be more of a one-handed type of a rig, I ended up getting the Rawlings kitted out for being a two-handed weapon. You'll see that in a lot of the guild's videos that have me being kind of crazy. Here's my baby with glow-in-the-dark blade. My wife, Misty, also started joining the guild at that point in time, but she was more of a shorter-bladed person. She's even shorter than Nick. And then we had purchased a third kit, which is basically the shorter blade, but with the longer handle, so that my younger children or Misty could attempt to work longsword with me. And then from there, I started diving, deep into the depths of Meyer, which is my preferred. But Gischenauer, Meyer, um, I've been out of study for a while, so it's I have to find all my files on my hard drive to remember all the um, masters that I started perusing their um, their treatises so that I could piece together what works for me. Because of course, you know Nick's mantra of find your fight. You got to find the weapon that works for you. You got to find the style that works for you. And then once you find that, you've got to modify it so everything works with your body type and your body mechanics.
Yep.
In the past few years, I have had some issues with my health, so I have fallen out of actual physical practice. And then with everything else that was going on, it's all my books that and manuscripts that I had accumulated were all in digital form, so I had to scour my hard drives to be able to find exactly where all that stuff is. So,
and actually, something I forgot to do at the start of this, be sure to support the Historical Fencing Guild by visiting patreon.com/the Historical Fencing Guild, where you can help keep the lights on for Nick here. Or if you just want to send money to Nick directly, there is always paypal.me/Nicholas Tockert. And last but not least, indiecd.org, which is actually my website, where you'll find links to all of Nick's books, including The Simple Sword, The Fighting Axe, and The Simple Spear. So, which are all, as Rich was just talking about, really good manuals that kind of blend different styles together.
Yeah,
it seems like. So,
Nick is definitely one that is very good about taking bits and pieces here and there, and as he likes to say, making them go. Now, for anyone who has perused the archives of the Historical Fencing Guild's YouTube channel, you more than likely have come across the PSA Reach and You. That 6-year-old child is now almost 16, but that is my youngest.
Should I pull that video up real quick?
Sure.
Let me see if I can find it real quick. PSA.
So, for those that aren't familiar with it, my middle daughter wanted to join in and learn how to fence as well. So we brought her along, and of course, we always brought my youngest along when all of us were going. And at that point in time, we were practicing in a park, and my youngest was playing on the playground right next to where we were practicing, and my middle child was accusing Nick of cheating, that he was using a longer blade or stuff like that. The only difference in the rigs that we were using is Nick had a basket hilt on his, and that second sword that I held up a moment ago with the complete black grip, that was the one that my youngest was using. So technically, they would have had a little bit longer reach added on to that if they would have just used one hand and choked down on it. But anyways, not the green room. Anyways, so my middle child accused Nick of cheating, and one of Nick's favorite things to do is for you to take the point of your weapon, put it in the middle of his forehead, have your arm at full extension, and he shows that he can't touch you. It's like the old cartoons of the little guy swinging and the taller person just being like, nope, you shall not pass. So Nick's like, great, I don't even have a reach on a 17-year-old girl. So I'm like, here, Nick, this should make you feel better. And had my youngest come over. My youngest was 6 and had longer reach. And then a couple months later, we actually filmed the entire process to show that a 6-year-old actually had longer reach than Nick. Not much, but a little. Enough.
And here is that video from 9 years ago.
Hi, everybody. Occasionally, I get accused of sneaking a longer blade into a fencing bout, or using some kind of "I've got longer arms than folks." This came up at an earlier practice, so we're settling it again to prove the point. This is Sarah, and how old are you, Sarah? How old are you?
6.
That's what she's 6 years old. Now, what I'm going to do is so that we're at level height. That way I'm not using angles or any trickery. We're almost the same height because I'm a hobbit and her dad's a giant techno Viking. Now, honey, put your sword right in the middle of my forehead, fully extended. You hold the weight up, okay? Put it right there. Now I want to show some people what I have to deal with. I caught a part of her coat. Go ahead, I am at full maximum extension and I can flip her coat that's hanging down.
And she still has some flex in her arm.
Mm-hmm. So, I don't want to hear any gripe that I'm cheating, okay? Thank you. This has been a public service announcement from the Historical Fencing Guild. Support your local swordmaster.
Yep. And most of us, well, pretty much all of us still have reach on him. So let's we'll dive into some of the comments here real quick. First through the door we had Foxy, and Bladed right behind. And Bladed was in need of some caffeine, which I don't mind if I do. And I'll let you all take a guess at what this bottle is. We're not sponsored by them, but we will take their money. Off in the Woods is excited about the longsword speech tonight. It says, "Isn't everyone trying to sword fight with sticks when they were children?" Not well, but I was one of them.
Hey, as long as the pointy end goes in the other person, you're doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Foxy says, "I know I did." Blade says, "It's probably the teacher in me, but anytime I see the neighborhood kids outside sword fighting, I have to stop myself from going out and correcting them."
All right, stop here for a second. I am so there with Bladed on this. I can't count the number of times. It's years ago, I bought some really nice foam padded weapons from Ed Helen Armory. And they looked fairly realistic. And, all the kids in the apartment complex we lived in at the time, loved to come over and just grab them with my kids and just go to town. And it's like, nope, we don't do any of that. It's we're facing each other. We're not hitting each other in the back of the head. We're not out to hurt each other here. We're out to have fun. But every once in a while, it's like your form's a little off. So I definitely feel the pain on that one. Sorry, go ahead.
Nope, you're good. Cindy Cup is here. Hello, Cindy.
How's it going, Cindy?
And we have greetings. And we've already got a comment dump here. Off in the Woods says, "Got a bounce for 15. Really excited for this one." Well, be sure to come back and watch, whatever you end up missing. And then we have Sunday advertising for Nick. And Nick does have a new book out, Through the Thinning Veil. That was just released, I think, yesterday as a paperback and a couple days prior on Kindle.
Thinning Veil's finally out. Cool.
Yes. Yep, it is out, and the link to it is on his NDCD page. Check out Nick's art at deviantart.com/NickT, which does have over a decade of art on it, I think he said.
Yeah, longer than that because he had that before I met him, and this will be 11 or 12 years that I've known him.
Okay. So over a decade of art. Help Nick teach people to be dangerous safely by supporting him on Patreon. Your body was pretty cool going invisible. Yeah, so unlike the normal host of this show, I am allowed to imbibe in caffeine. Actually, that is what I'm pretty sure if you were to draw my blood, it would not be red, it would be green and, filled with many, many particles of caffeine. Again, we're not sponsored by them, but we will not refuse their money.
Or the product.
Yeah, well, that too. But I'm being good. It is the 0 sugar, so I at least have that going for me.
There's a 0 sugar version of.
Oh yeah.
I have to try. Then again, even their diet was.
This is a lot better than their diet.
Diet Dr. Pepper and Diet Mountain Dew are the only two diet sodas that are almost perfectly indistinguishable from the real unleaded, I should say.
No. Oh no, I could tell the difference between regular and diet Mountain Dew. Dr. Pepper, I agree with you on. Those I have a hard time differentiating. The 0 sugar to me tastes closer to regular Mountain Dew than.
I remember a gas station that my best friend's wife used to work at used to have Diet Code Red slushies. Not just Code Red slushies, Diet Code Red slushies.
Ooh.
That was, yeah. I spent a lot of money going to that gas station just buying those slushies. And the thing is, I would have to travel like 30 minutes out of my way to get to it unless I was actually going to my friend's house.
Yeah, that would be good. I'd get in a lot of trouble with that. Cindy says, be sure to tune in to the Historical Fencing Guild tonight at 7.
Although technically they should already be here if they're seeing that.
Yep. Foxy has had to physically restrain me from grabbing a couple of my trainers and going out to fix their form.
The thing that stops me is I'm 6'4", 400 pounds with pristine thug face. If I approach anyone's kids, it's just going to be immediately Amber Alerts, and I haven't even, gone to say hi to them. It's just walking my dogs past other people's kids to get to the bark park. People are like, "Is he trying to?" No, my dog has to go to the bathroom. Leave me alone.
Bladed also says, and when I first started buffering, I had to restrain myself from correct form there too. At first I was too shy with the new group, but after a couple of sessions. Okay. Let's see. Blade is drinking dew also, diet, because he has to. Technically, I'm supposed to drink diet or sugar, 0 sugar, or my doctor would really like if I just got rid of all of it, but...
Same here. But I'm like, I can't. I just...
I don't look at an orange, and even though 3 hots in a cot doesn't sound, terrible, I need my caffeine.
Yeah, I just can't get past the taste of the artificial sweeteners in most diet sodas. And then you try to take my caffeine away. I'll cut a witch.
I mean, God bless Nick for having to go the caffeine-free route. All the more power to the man. much love and respect, brother. But I wouldn't be here doing this show today if I didn't have my caffeine.
Nick has tremendous heroic levels of restraint on many fronts.
Yes. So, comment dump. Right as I went to click on something. Now I know how Nick feels. On my 2 shows, I don't have this issue. Foxy says I told him he needs parental permission first. That's yes, definitely need that. Bladed, I'm 6 foot something, and small children just flock to me for some reason.
So, my wife brought my eldest 2 children into our marriage. The youngest is ours together. We actually met because of Dungeons and Dragons. And actually, my sister-in-law, I thought, hated me because she only ever caught me when I was in character. And my character was just another variant of my first name. But she invited me over the day before Misty's and my first date because it was my brother-in-law, well, the man who will become my brother-in-law, his birthday, and they were going to have a dinner and have me. So technically my first date got moved up a day. Within 5 minutes of sitting down in their apartment, their 2 children, which were like 5 and 3 at the time, and at the time, my wife's youngest, my middle child, decided to start using me as a jungle gym. Literally 5 minutes after coming in the door and sitting down in a chair. And they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm like, I'm used to this. My own blood nieces and nephews, their entire life, I've been Uncle Jungle Jim.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you're our size, you end up being play equipment. Yeah.
Climb up on top. I can see my house from here. You live here. Of course you can see your house from here.
So, Foxy is caffeine free also. Caffeine is evil, says Cindy. So I'm guessing Cindy is also caffeine free. When Foxy first got pregnant many years ago, I tried going caffeine free with her, but I couldn't do it. It takes. So I tried cutting back on pop, just drinking more water, which was good for me. But I found that I still had to have like the little Mio energy thing, little flavor shots to put in, or the Crystal Light with caffeine, so I at least had some. Because that was really hard to come off of. Makes me jittery and my head hurts. Cindy says even decaf gives the jitters. Yeah, decaf is, contrary to what some people may think, decaf is not fully decaf. There is still some caffeine in it.
Yeah, it's decaffeinated, not uncaffeinated.
Right. Foxy, on rare occasions, I'll indulge in lemonade, but that's about it. Bladed, the only time I don't do diet is with tea. I can't drink unsweetened teas. I 100% agree with that. I have to have at least one little packet of Sweet and Low or something in it to take away the bitterness of the tea that you get from most places.
I like a little bit of tea with my sweetener. Although, when we were trying to go keto, I was using stevia, the actual liquid stevia extract, instead of the powder to try to cut as many carbs as possible. And it only takes a few drops of that, and I'm good. Misty can't stand this stuff. She says it gives such an aftertaste for her. It's not even funny, but I really do like it. Which reminds me, I need to get some more stevia instead of using actual sugar. I'm a bad diabetic.
Let's. I'm gonna pull up this other video here real quick. So this is a video. Actually, everybody in here saw this video a couple weeks ago when I got these all straightened out for Nick. But I figured this would be a good one for you to comment on, Rich.
Okay.
Our little bout. If you need me to pause at any point, just say pause and I can back it up a little bit or something.
Sure.
So there's no sound to this. I removed all the sound and everything just because of everybody driving by, but
Now, for most people who, I didn't realize I did a flourish. For most people who aren't familiar with the difference between longsword versus like a rapier or something like that, is with longsword, you're basically operating a lever. So you've got one hand which is guiding what's going on, and then your offhand is actually what's applying the most amount of power to what you're doing, because you're working a lever, which allows you to move a much larger weapon much faster than people would expect. And the nice thing about that also is, because again, you're working a lever, so you're doing very little to cause a lot of motion on your blade, is you can do a lot of quick reversals and come up into an underhand strike or something like that, which is a lot of fun for people who aren't expecting it, and it can be a pretty decent dick move.
And I think that was part of my issue during our bout, was I wasn't used to the lever action. I think I was trying to use both hands all the time.
Yeah, and that is one of the hardest things to break as you first start working with, at least the version of longsword that I work with. And you see it with katana work, and you see it with at least in Meyer, that lever action piece.
Okay.
So the longsword style that I work off of is more of a dramatic style, which there's several German masters. The one that I go by is Joachim Meyer. So it's in German longsword, you very rarely thrust from further out. You'll thrust once you get into a bind, but basically it's kind of pointless to thrust because, face it, normally it was done by fairly armored individuals, and what you would do is you get into the bind. Once you're in the bind, you bring your sword up and over, and then because you're half swording it at that point in time, you're able to get the tip of your blade between the chinks in the armor and get in that way. So, of course, we're not armored here, so we're not really going into a bind. We're basically taking shots at extremities and torso and doing our best not to smack each other in the head.
Yep.
Which I think we did a pretty good job. I don't think we hit each other in the head at all.
No, we came close a couple times. I remember, I'm pretty sure I remember kind of dipping my head back real quick, but yeah, you did do a nice little flourish there. That was, yeah, you did that without even thinking about it.
Now, another thing with the style that I use. So the footwork is kind of reversed. from what the basics of what Nick's style shows, because Nick's style, of course, is a single hand rapier. So when you're on the offensive, your weapon hand is forward. When you're on the offensive, your weapon hand is back, and either your shield or whatever you're using to parry is going to be more forward. Whereas with German longsword, especially in Meyer, you are the exact opposite stance. So the foot of the hand I am using to lead the attack with is what's going to be forward. So it if no, sorry.
So like if your left hand is on top.
My apologies. I got that backwards. Since I'm right-handed, so my right hand is going to be on top. My dominant hand, my right foot is actually going to be behind, because how everything should be done is you should move from one guard to another, and to do that, you're going to strike. As you're striking, you should be stepping. So just like a boxer, a lot of their power comes from their hips. So does longsword. So you've got part of it from the lever action, but you've also got part of it as you're stepping forward and bringing that through and doing the follow through. So once that's there, then your guard is going to be on your left-hand side, and then you're going to change the guard something over to the right. And again, as you do that, you're going to step. So you should never be changing from one guard to another without a cut, and you shouldn't be cutting without stepping.
All right. That is actually explains a lot of where I was going wrong.
So right here, for those that have seen all the videos from that night, you'll see that at one point in time, I'll start choking down, so I get a couple of extra inches of reach, which, of course, Nick's comment about reach, and then, he pulls out the Nerf gun and shoots me, which I knew. As soon as I showed up, I saw that on his belt, and I'm like, at some point in time, this son of a gun is going to shoot me. And I was right.
Mm-hmm.
Because, fight smarter, not harder.
Exactly. Hey, the Indiana Jones method works, okay?
Works very well.
That was a good kill there.
Now, you'll also have to understand it was like 100 degrees.
In the shade.
Yeah. That shirt that I'm wearing is actually a very light green. It's showing up as a more medium and dark green. I was soaked just moving from the car over to where everything was staged.
Yeah, that was a very, very hot and humid day. I'm going to take this back just a little bit here. So you can see the two different styles of stance here. And I can tell I was still in my, rapier form.
Yeah.
Because this is about the same stance that I have for that.
And as you can see, I've got my weapon further back, and I've got that leg back, because when I come forward, I want to come forward and do that power. Now, you'll notice I'm not doing nearly as much footwork as I should be doing, because I have been dealing with diabetic neuropathy from the knees down for the past couple years. So I'm still trying to build up to get back into the mobility that I used to have, which I know I'm probably never going to have that mobility again. I'm 50. Yeah. That I used to have, but I still need to have better mobility than I do now.
Yep. And it also doesn't help that, again, it was 100 degrees that day, 100%
Yes.
humidity, and, just thinking about moving, you broke into a sweat.
And last Thanksgiving, I had 2 bone spurs removed from my left shoulder.
Yeah.
So this was the first time fighting since then. Now, I have moved through various guards to see if I had enough to actually try to participate, and I'm like, yeah, it should be good enough, and turned out pretty decent.
Yeah. Yeah, I think with mine, because with me being more the rapier fighter like my wife.
And right there, you see me showing Joe the lever action.
Yep. Which I'm still trying to control it more like a rapier there.
A lot of people, when they first start working with longsword, and they haven't been looking at some of the older styles and things of that nature, treat it kind of like a lightsaber.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Where I first started figuring out, oh, hey, this is not how you make a sword like this go, is in college. Another great friend of mine, Vince, and I had both decided to buy some Boken. We used to, fence and practice in his front yard. Our favorite movie series was Highlander. Our favorite TV show at that point in time was Highlander. In one of the episodes of Highlander, we actually hear McLeod give that speech about, your top hand is what's going to be guiding. It's what's going to be your finesse. It's going to be your control. And then your bottom hand, that's where your power comes from. And that's where I started learning that process from. And then from other treatises that I would look at when I finally started fencing longsword, instead of just screwing around with Boken and Shanai and drunken bruiser matches in the backyards of various friends. And actually, learning, as Nick would like to call it, calibration. And it's learning that piece right there that really makes all the difference, because a lot of times people are just treating it like a baseball bat.
Yeah. Now I'll ask you this, bringing up Highlander, because there's a longsword fight scene in every episode. Several in the movies, of course.
Yeah.
And bearing in mind that it is, TV/movie, sci-fi, how, knowing what you know now for longsword, how would you rate their choreography?
Really good. And I agree with Bladed Thesis. The latest thing from him I see in our chats is that the TV show is much better than the movies, and I have to agree. For the movies, my friend Vince and I always used to joke, Highlander, there should have only been one. But I really do enjoy the TV series. It's one of my favorite TV series of all times. they actually usually found fighters who can act rather than looking for actors to teach them how to fight. Then you had a couple of special cases there, like Rowdy Roddy Piper and stuff like that. That it was just for the name draw. Richard Mole was in the first episode of the first season, and I was happy to see him. And I didn't realize that he's actually a classically trained actor.
Really?
You always think of him as just the big dumb guy because he was the comic relief on Night Court.
Yeah.
Apparently, he was so a fish out of water on that show because he's like, this isn't how you act. What do you mean we're going to just kind of improv this? What's going on? And the man also has a very prolific voice acting career as well. Wonderful, very intelligent man. Someone that I just enjoy. The more and more I learn about the man, it saddens me that his time on Night Court he didn't enjoy. But considering Night Court was one of my favorite TV shows growing up, and I realized the other day, Misty and I were watching an episode of Night Court, and I'm like, oh dear God, I just realized so many scenes from Night Court are literal things lifted from my life now, where it's like, oh God, that is totally Misty and I, a scene where Kwame is jealous about Mac and stuff like that. But sorry, I digress. Sorry, that's my ADD. But going back, so they actually, a lot of times, they were looking for fighters who could act instead of actors who could fight. Now, one thing in the Highlander TV series that got a little dicey, no pun intended, is usually the fights between immortals. What you don't see is a thick electrical cable running up the leg of their outfits, going up through their sleeve, attaching to their swords, so that when they strike, they are throwing sparks. That was not something that in post. That was not, a digital effect or anything like that. Because face it, it was the 90s.
Yeah.
Digital effects weren't that cool yet.
I always kind of wondered how they did that.
So yeah, they were battery cables hooked up to car batteries, and then they just hit it with the background scene. So you see, usually when all the sparks are flying, it's a close-up on them from the waist up.
Yep.
And you don't see a lot of footwork going on. Now, further shots and longer shots, they don't have to hide it as well, because if you've got a shot from 100 yards back and you're just seeing these two swords, you're not seeing the cables. But yeah, it was
you're not paying attention to the small details. You're looking at the fight.
Yeah. Now, granted, because it was for TV, it was for the screen. It's not true one-to-one real sword fighting. There's so many extra flourishes that it's like, that'll get you killed, and stuff like that. So, one of the scenes that we really, one of these days we should do a watch party with Nick with a couple of the episodes of Highlander and just sit there and listen to him critique, because I would really like to hear him in his critique of the episode Duende, which basically has Spanish for Pierre.
Okay.
And you know Nick and his love of Spanish.
Yes.
I think that would be a very fun episode, if not the entire episode, but at least a couple of the bits in there, because it actually shows the circle and shows the stepping and stuff like that. That was a good thing, is Adrian Paul actually cared about martial arts.
Yeah.
It's hard to find the right actors to do it unless they actually have a passion for that kind of thing.
Yeah. One of my favorite scenes from Highlander, and then we'll hop back onto the comments here. There was an episode where they were actually fighting on the Eiffel Tower, if I remember correctly. They were on a big metal tower. I'm fairly certain it was the Eiffel Tower. And, of course, he ends up winning the fight. And right after he wins the fight, what happens? There's all lightning.
Yes.
And I don't remember exactly what the character said, but the look in the eyes of, oh, I just messed up on where I killed this immortal lad.
Now, I want to say that quickening scene was used in later seasons as part of the opening.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, if you're looking for a soundtrack to get you to move, to whether you are walking, running, doing a stair climber, doing a treadmill, working out in the gym, fencing, whatever, Queen's It's a Kind of Magic is, basically the soundtrack to the Highlander movie. And the song Princes of the Universe, I've gotten so many tickets because of that damn song.
Yep.
It just, suddenly makes your foot so much heavier.
Yep. Yeah, no, I love that song. I don't think I had it on CD. I think I only had it digitally. And if it was possible to wear out a digital file, that section of my hard drive was, if you pulled out the disc, you would have seen a little worn spot wherever that file was stored at.
I had it digitally. I had it on CD. I had it on cassette. Oh yes, it.
And Bladed did verify. Finale Part 2, Season 3, Episode 22, McLeod versus Callus, and yes, they were on the Eiffel Tower. But yeah, that look of realization of, I am standing on an extremely large metal building. This is going to hurt more than usual.
Yeah, Bladed's comment right above that one.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes, the sword pocket.
So, because we were idiots, the collapsible swords that you could buy for like $1.99 at KB Hobby back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So many of my friends and I would keep those. At that point in time, I was actually wearing a trench most of the time, either a trench or my jean jacket. My jean jacket had the most ridiculous pocket. I could actually put small animals in my inside pockets. And by small, I mean like a house cat, a grown house cat. But we would have those, and just random places on campus, because we did this at college. Random places on campus, all of a sudden, it was funny because it's like all of a sudden we would be aware of each other like the Immortals were. All of a sudden it's just like someone's nearby. And then you reach in your coat, you whip around, and then you extend your sword out of nowhere, and we're just having these cheesy, stupid sword battles on campus, in malls. I'm surprised we weren't arrested.
Well, let's run through the last about 20 seconds of this video here. I don't think there was much left. I think you're just kind of, yeah, you were explaining more of the why you hold it farther down when you're going single-handed.
Yeah.
Which was a lot easier for me at that point. So, well, we are 51 minutes in.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Does our audience have any questions on longsword that we can try to answer in the next few minutes? I thought you were grabbing a sword to hold up. You spun so quickly and grabbed something. I'm like, oh, he's got a weapon right there.
That'd be this way.
Ah. And that's the one I was using, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Then there's actual.
Here's a good question, Richie. What would be a longsword length for a person just over 5 foot?
For a person just over 5 foot, honestly, your blade length is going to be similar to what you look at as far as the rapier goes. It's just you might want to go a couple of inches shorter because you're looking at a wider blade with more material. Therefore, it's going to be a little bit more weighty. So, honestly, as far as long swords go, it's not necessarily as much length as it is you've got the ability to control. If you don't have a lot of wrist strength, I would start off with shorter blades and work up to longer blades, because as you're working with the weapon lengths and stuff like that, you will start developing more strength in your wrists as you're doing everything that you need to do. And then it would also, what is your ability for cardio? What is your ability for just general strength as far as your arms go and things of that nature? And that's what you're going to be looking at. And honestly, it's going to be whatever you feel comfortable with. Now, so my wife Misty is 5'2". No, 5'1". I'm almost 5'2". Anyways, neither here nor there. Misty is just barely over 5 foot herself. So, the swords that when she used this is a 34-inch Rawlings blade. Mine is 39. Or wait, no, this is 36. It's the shorter of the two Rawlings blades. Mine's the longer. And then, like I said, it's just we have a longer handle and a longer pommel.
Now, when you're talking about the length, you're talking, that's just the blade itself. That's not including
just the blade itself.
Okay.
So overall, my weapon is almost 6 foot tall.
Okay. Because Foxy had mentioned most longswords are nearly as tall as she is. And that's why I was thinking, okay, well, if it's, if yours is only a 39-inch, that's got to be just blade and not including the handle at all.
Yeah, it's almost 18 inches in handle.
Okay. And then one final question that popped up from Bladed, because I know you're going to have to get going here soon, Rich. If you had to pick a weapon from a different culture instead of a longsword, what would you choose and why?
I've really been wanting to get a Kopesh trainer because it marries my favorite things about axe and longsword.
All right. Cindy says, pals of mine started fencing with 45-inch German Schlagers. They had to change how they were saluting because the first time they tried it, they stuffed the point in the dirt. Oops.
Yeah, the problem with me trying to practice inside is even if I cut off 90% of the blade, I would still be hitting the ceiling with just the hilt.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up. We're almost at the hour mark. Thank you, everybody, for coming out and throwing in the great comments as always. Hopefully, this has been entertaining and informational. Wow, the more I move closer to my screen, the more I fade out. I'm melting. Anyway, wow, there goes my ADD.
Did you accidentally go back in time and have your mom fall in love with you?
Right? So, with that, I think we'll wrap it up here. Rich, thank you for coming on and talking longsword. Because I know I would not have been able to go for a full hour on this show. Not without at least somebody else here on it. And my wife had already had plans for tonight, so otherwise I would have roped her into this too. So
Glad I could help sidekick.
Although the three of us on the same show, I don't know if Nick would be monetized after that point. So, and just because we haven't thrown it up in a while,
his numbers might go up,
right? So, with that, folks, trying to remember how Nick closes this out generally, but thank you all for watching and support your local swordmaster. Have a
pointy
great
end
day.
goes to the other guy.
Yes, pointy end goes into the other guy.